Hi, this is the next video in the series of overviews of business diagnostics. Again, hopefully this is providing some value to you so you can take this away and apply it in your operation. Again, if you try it, you get into any difficulties at all, feel free to drop me an email or give me a call. So the next part we're going to look at is the area and process overview. So first thing we need to do in there is understand the value. So a good starting point on that is something called the SIPOC. I've covered this in one of the previous videos very briefly. So it stands for suppliers, inputs, process, outputs and customers. So do the people in that operation understand who the customers are? Do they understand what value they're providing to those customers? Do they understand who the suppliers are? What the inputs are from those suppliers? What the outputs are from their process to the customers? What, in terms of value, do they understand what value is in the eyes of the customer? So, from the customer's perspective, is it real value? Is it delivered as the customer would expect it to be delivered? Service level agreements, are there any in place? Are they based on need or are they just arbitrary SLAs? How is performance measured against those SLAs? And what are the consequences of not meeting them? So all questions it would be useful for you to ask when you first go in to that operation. In terms of those SLAs, do they ever over-deliver? So do they beat those SLAs? Because that is a form of waste. You're over-delivering, you're potentially over-resourced or over-committing in terms of stock levels, things like that. So another good indicator. So that's understanding the value within that operation. And within that, you should always have in the back of your mind when you're doing any kind of diagnostic in an area, and try not to get blinded by, you know, if it's a pet area of yours or if it's an area that you're quite fond of. The effectiveness challenge that you should always have in the back of your mind is, should this activity be done at all? So not, well, you know, how long is this activity taking? Should we be doing it at all? Is it adding any value to the customer? And if it isn't, then why are we doing it? So next thing to look at when you go into that operation is capacity and demand planning. So is that area using any kind of formal or informal capacity and demand planning? Does your resource match the demand that you're getting in? So capacity and demand. So don't man up to the levels that you think you may need. You know, it should match the demand volumes that are coming in at the frequency they're coming in, wherever possible. Are standard times in place? Because it's very difficult to build any kind of capacity and demand model unless you've got standard, some sort of standardization. So if you've got standard processes, you can then apply standard times to that. That all helps in the capacity and demand planning. So are the standards in place? If the standards are in place, are standard times being applied to them or being derived from them? How do capacity planning outputs compare with your calculations? So, you know, based on the data that you got in the advanced data when you requested it before you went into the operation, you will have done some quick and dirty calculations that says we've got this much volume and it takes this long to do it, then we should need around about this much in terms of headcount and FTE. So how does that compare to what's being used in the capacity planning inputs and outputs in the operation? Do they match? What's that forecasting accuracy? So they're using a forecast, and a wise man once said there are only two types of forecast: wrong ones and lucky ones. So they're either getting it wrong or they're getting lucky. But if you've got good historical data and you've got a stable sort of order book coming through, it won't be a forecast, it will be more of a known plan. So you know what your demand is going to be because you've got orders from 3 months ago coming through the line. Unless it's an inbound telephony operation where you don't know how many people are going to call that day. And that's when you get into forecasts. So is the data on volumes and standard timings, is that periodically validated? So how do we know that's correct? And how's that being used? So those are the next couple of areas you'll want to look at when you're doing any kind of business diagnostic. See you next time.